we are incredibly, as SaaS founders and creators, let's say, for lack of a better word, stupid about what succeeds in the short term and what succeeds in the long term. So what I mean by that is a lot of people I talk to and a lot of my experiences are that building a business, we overemphasize what we think we can do in the short term. So we think we can scale it a lot faster. And it actually takes a lot longer than we think. And this is true even of really experienced founders. So making sure that we understand actually what happens and how to actually grow a business, I think is really critically important. And I think is so misunderstood in the world of tech. And with marketing, especially, I think a lot of that reasoning for, let's say, over reliance on the short term is because people think they can just pour marketing juices on the engine right away and they can start throwing money at it. It'll succeed right away. What we notice with our products is of the $13 million we've made, and I'll talk about this year specifically, of the millions we've made this year, of the hundreds of thousands of users that have signed up this year, of the 20 to 30,000 customers we've had this year to our products, roughly 60% have come from non-paid marketing activities, more specifically, non-intentional marketing activities. So we see a lot of our growth comes from product-led growth levers, building great products, doing these things that are outside of the traditional scope of marketing. So as someone who comes from both a product and marketing background, I often laugh at marketers who just think they can pour gasoline on a fire and expect it to just skyrocket a business right away. That's more often than not true. So for example, I talk to a lot of different founders and I do a lot of different coaching, as you know, from companies ranging from $100,000 a year in revs to a couple million, few million. And even founders who have made or are making a few $100,000 a year make a really silly mistake. And that mistake is that they're over reliant on that silver bullet marketing channel. So when I talk to the founders of these companies, we actually go back to a lot of foundational questions. Who are my customers? Where are my customers? What do they want? How do we test and build repeatable marketing channels? How do we build better products that serve our ICPs so that the marketing channels are even less relied upon and there's more organic and natural growth? How do we get clear on team direction? How do we get clear on dynamics between the team members? How do we get clear on delegation of responsibilities? And many of these things are the quote unquote boring parts of the business that actually are so critically important to create a business of our dreams where we can step away from our day-to-day and really just let it operate through really well-defined processes and clarity and alignment.
I studied the indie games world a ton before I started Snackbar Studio. People talk about how there's 10,000 games that launch on Steam every year and only 500 indie games make any real money. But if you look at those 10,000 games, there are people who make their game by themselves, say nothing about it ever online, launch it on Steam, and then go, oh, it didn't work. It's just, it really hurts my brain. I mean, look, if it's a side project and you're just doing it for fun to be able to say like, I made a game once, fine, I get it. But if you were hoping that people would actually buy that game and you didn't put marketing and sort of customer distribution and acquisition into the product, yeah, you're up a creek, right? With no paddle. And if you haven't built a community of people who subscribe to an email list or who wish listed you on Steam, who've been following your game on social platforms for hopefully 6 months or a year before you ever came out, yeah, you're not going to have those people to talk about it. And I think SaaS world works the same way. The only difference in games versus SaaS world is games, you get one shot. Like it is the 8 Mile M&M problem. Like it's just, you're on stage for like that 1 week when you launch. And if that week doesn't go well, the odds of you turning it around in games world are next to nothing. SaaS world is the opposite. You can have a crap launch. You can have a shitty first 4 years and you can still turn it around. You can turn it around at any time because SaaS is so iterative, and what you make, if you find product market fit, you find your audience, you find marketing channels that work, you can do it. And I think that's one of the most appealing things about this business versus a lot of other consumer plays. The problem, especially with a lot of like early SaaS founders, micro SaaS founders, is like we get pigeonholed into, hey, my product does this. How do I find customers for that? As opposed to, hey, the market needs this. And it doesn't have to be a big market. It can be such a small market. That's your huge advantage as an indie SaaS founder, is that you can serve an incredibly tiny market that no one else cares about because venture capitalists ignore it because it's too small for them. Other founders haven't discovered it, but you can find it and serve it. I think that's a really beautiful thing.
It had to be product-led for us in order for it to work with a small team and with small budgets. So it's not really possible to bootstrap a product that needs, larger investments in marketing. Like if we would enter a market where we need to educate the market, right? We wouldn't have the budgets for that. So that's why the crowded space is actually good for us. Like you don't really need to explain why people need forms. Every business needs a form at one point. They just need to pick the one that they, want to use, that they like the most, or that is the most affordable. So that's kind of what we tap into. And basically from our free users, so we have close to 800,000 users worldwide right now. By now, it's around 2% converts to Tally Pro. And Tally Pro just offers additional features. So basically, you want to remove that branding, what helps us grow. You can do that with Tally Pro. You have more customization features. You have custom domains where you can host your forms on, team collaboration, everything that are kind of no-brainers when you work in a team, when you're a startup. And it's priced at $29 a month, which is also basically the most affordable option that we could find at the time. So we just looked at the cheapest plan from any competitor and went for that pricing point. And that's as far as our research went. And it's still the same price.
If you kill it on one channel, you will get to probably 10 million ARR today. If you can master 2, you're probably going to do 50 to 100 million. And if you can master 3, you're going to be $1 billion SaaS. Paid is such a fast feedback loop, particularly as you're looking at all of these AI-based creatives that are starting to come out, that you can really test these assumptions very, very quickly. But I would say, moving forward, at least for us right now, where we've evolved, we went from SEO, we added in paid, that is now working. And then we went from a PLG model around, the 10 to 15 million ARR stage to a sales-led model and more enterprise direction. And so that has just completely changed the trajectory of the business. And that took a really long time to be able to figure out because we had to build an entirely new infrastructure to be able to support that sales-led motion, which we didn't have at the very beginning because most SaaS companies that are bootstrapped, they've really got to start PLG because it's cheaper. March of 2020, the shit hit the proverbial wall. And all of a sudden, we went from a good deal being 100 seats to us saying no to 10,000 seat orgs because of what happened inside of remote work. Because February of 2020, 4.5% of the US workforce was working remotely. By March, that was 67% of the US workforce. It was an entire tide change understanding where remote work was going. And the fundamentals of our business were good. I think we grew 228% in 2020. And for an 8-figure SaaS to grow at that rate is off the charts, unprecedented. So we were just holding on for dear life. But the really great lesson that we learned as well was we owned both the PLG side and the sales-led side. So a lot of our competitors only had a sales-led model, meaning we need 200 salespeople today to be able to try to sell all the opportunity that we have. Well, we can't do that. We can't spin that up. But if you come to Time Doctor, you can put in your own credit card. Support will help you. You can sign up 1,000 seat. There were multi-thousand seat accounts that were signing up to a credit card. And then we had the sales team that was going after the bigger fish, right? So we were able to get both sides of that. And that was a huge lever for us. And then we essentially said, okay, well, now we really want to start to turn ourselves into a sales-led organization because we had still built a PLG product with a sales-led team attached to it. And then the last iteration is where we're saying, let's go back to zero. Let's build a sales-led org to be able to build that type of motion and then keep the PLG working, which it still does today. And it makes tens of millions of dollars and we're very, very happy with it. But the sales-led side is really where the growth is coming over the last couple of quarters.
before I took over, I guess, approach or stance around product demos was sort of begrudgingly. We will do product demos for people, but it was like, answer this questionnaire first and, kind of qualifying a bit more. But when I took over, I wanted to educate myself and then just open the floodgates to help, talk to as many people as possible. So it was very proactive about soliciting people for demos. So, but that was a full spectrum. So there'd be people who were, brand new, didn't even have any revenue, they were small, and then some of the big people would come through that. So I was talking to a lot of these people. Our customer success manager is also now talking to actually more people than I do, because he's in the US and I'm in Europe. So he's time zone overlapping with people. But we are now also starting to try and put the pieces together about being more proactive about this. So not just inbound looking to, okay, how can we actually go and try and, the analogy I would maybe use is like, go from rabbit trapping to whale hunting, or, whatever your analogy you want to use. And in that rabbit trap, occasionally a whale somehow fits and falls in there. But try to be proactive, because, and I think that's something for people to think about is like, can you through an outbound sales motion, can you replicate your top 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 customers? And that's something that we want to do, because in our category, I think, I would wager in the affiliate tracking category that activation rates are probably lower than average, because let's say your Webflow, your customer does not need to have any revenue or really operational business yet for them to activate. I could set up a Webflow site and create a beautiful website for my business that is purely aspirational, and it could be there for a year or two and never generate any revenue. And that customer activated even though they were never a real business. For an affiliate tracking tool, that's not really possible. I can fully onboard and set up all my campaigns and do everything. But if I never actually sell anything, and I never finish my product, right? You can people that like never actually finish a product, but they set up a Webflow website, right? And so for that reason, I would say activation rates are probably lower than average than a lot of other businesses. And I think that's probably part of the reason why this space has a lot of power laws. We see so many power laws across our business, where it's like our biggest customers are so much more so much more successful than sort of like the long tail of customers, right? So like the long tail of customers who never really activate, or, they don't make a lot of money from their affiliate program. But then our number one customer is making like mid 6 figures or high 6 figures from their affiliate program each month, right? And depending on what your pricing model will allow, it means those larger customers are worth a lot more money to like actively go after them, if you've got what's in place to be able to service them, right? So like there's features they need, there's sophistication in terms of compliance and privacy protection, et cetera. And then in terms of how they want to be sold to or how they want to buy, that's a very different thing. You might think, oh, everyone wants just to self-onboard and product-led growth. And it's like, well, a lot of businesses don't. Like they don't want to buy a tool like that. And particularly if it's something where there's sensitive issues around security and data protection and so forth. They want to talk to somebody. They want to ask some questions. They want to know if there's a problem that I can get on a call with someone and see their face. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different things that you need to take into consideration.
I literally just focus on the software, made it better. And the way that the industry that I'm in is it's very, very tight network. So I knew that if I kill this, other people, because that company has to have other people work for them, and they'll say, well, hey, you got to use our software, and then they'll use it, and then they'll like it, and then it'll grow. And it was the network effect, and it worked to it. So I was just like, I'm going to focus on product. I did zero marketing. Website was terrible. Just plowed it all into the software and made it. And here's the thing. It's not beautiful. It's not what someone would call traditionally beautiful, but for this industry, I went with truck drivers. I like got on the truck. I was loading vehicles with them. I watched what they did. So I made an app that they love. The truck drivers love it. And that's the key, because they're not bitching to the owner like, hey, this sucks. This is slowing us down. So these guys love it. And I knew if I could get them to love it, it would go up. And it was a gamble, but it paid off. I mean, I'm in the Midwest. I'm kind of a country boy, so that's not like that much of a reach. I just went right over here to do it. So, but still, you're right. I think a lot of people won't get down in the trenches and kind of see what's really happening and kind of focus on some of that stuff. So that was my key differentiator.
Is that the biggest mistake that you see a lot of SaaS startups making, or is there something else that you see over and over and over again?
I would say, I mean, yes, I think they don't focus on the actual app enough. Like they get a little bit of success and they're like, cool, let's scale that sales team and we're going to do SEO and we're just going to kill it. And then you get people in initially, but there's a high drop off rate because they get in, they're like, okay, oh, but this doesn't really do what I want to do. And then, it's kind of like it's like everybody does dropshipping on Amazon. They're like, oh, I'll sell these sandals from Alibaba. And then people get them and then they send them back. And so you get all these returns and it ends up not being kind of really worth it. I see that a lot in SaaS, just like that initial jump. And then they're like, oh, we got to scale. And I feel like if you could pull back and wait a little bit, I think for retention, I think that's better.